Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Organizing Life interview series with Hope Organizers. I'm Janet Fishman, the owner of Hope Organizers. And if you've been on this call, one of these interview calls in previous months, you know that everything in life involves organizing. If you're going to get your car repaired and it's going to be in the shop for a few days, you need to organize things so that everything that you need to do during that time is taken care of. You know, how are you going to get to work? Do you need to rent a car? Who's going to pick you up? Who's going to take you back to the rental car place or the repair shop? Who's going to take the kids to school? All the different arrangements that you normally would take care of with your car, you now have to organize to get done in some other fashion. And so each month I have someone on this interview series to talk about an aspect of life and how it involves organizing. And today we're very honored to have Kelila Heller, who is an advisor for seniors that need to go into an assisted living or a care facility. And I'm going to read a little bit about her bio. She entered into the senior living arena beginning in 2007 when her mother fractured her hip, followed by a major stroke and vascular dementia. Kelila helped her mother move into an assisted living community and later into a board and care home. Kelila's maternal aunt and grandmother suffered with Alzheimer's disease. This has made her sensitive to the needs of families who need help caring for seniors. Families in crisis don't know where to begin. The process is overwhelming. Kelila and her partner, Tammy Podell, are resources and counselors for families, helping them obtain the best information as they explore assisted living and other home care choices together. Kelila grew up in a rural community in the Sierra Nevada mountains of Northern California. She and her husband, Rob, met when they attended Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. They've been together for 43 years. They have 2 sons and have lived in Thousand Oaks, California for over 30 years. She has a bachelor's in communications from Cal State Northridge and is an administrator, residential care facility for the elderly by the state of California Department of Social Services. And so, you know, sometimes when bad things happen in our lives, we wonder why. And as I just read to you, she had things happen in her life and she took that pain and she turned it into a business to help others. So welcome, Kelila. We're glad you're here. And we're going to learn a lot of information tonight. And she also has a handout that she'll be talking about that we can give you if you're interested.
Thank you, Janet. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. And my business partner, Tammy, is on the call as well.
Yes.
And welcome everyone. You know, I love what Janet does because like she said, you need to be organized in life and all of us are going to age. I mean, we can't get around it and we're all going to die. We can't get around that one either, but it helps so much to understand as you age or as your loved one ages, what is available and what do things cost and what does the government pay for? So we're going to cover all that tonight, what it costs to have in-home care, what assisted living costs, what the government will pay for, won't pay for, what's the difference between skilled nursing and assisted living, and, you know, lots of things. What do you have to have prepared in advance so you have a little roadmap and so you don't get caught unawares or get. I have a lot of people call me who say, gosh, mom just fell and broke her hip. She's went to the hospital, she had surgery, and now she's in a skilled nursing facility and she can't go home anymore. Her house has all these stairs. She can't manage it. You know, what are we going to do? And she only has $1,100 a month Social Security. So we're going to talk about that because you cannot count on the government to take care of you. Your Social Security will not be enough as you age.
And just today on the radio, I actually heard that they said Social Security is going to run out in 2035 and Medicare is going to run out because of all they've paid out for the COVID. And so, yes, this is very timely that you're here today. So let's get started. I have some questions. And so first, how do you work with families to begin the organizing process of finding care for a senior?
Well, first I want to say that Tammy and I cover an area of and know all assisted living locations, and we have dozens of home care companies as well in Ventura County and the San Fernando Valley. And if people are out of the area, we have agents who work like we do all over the state and all over the nation, so we can help people, whoever calls us. Our service, we're licensed with the state of California as administrators for assisted living, and our service is free. So that is really a win-win that we're going to talk about here, how we do that. Well, how we start a process is like I got a call from a daughter today. Her dad had a stroke. He was completely independent. He was running a winery in Paso Robles. And so it's so shocking. He's only 68. She lives in Ventura. He lives in Paso Robles. So she has him down here at a hospital, and she says he's got to have care. At least we're hoping he can totally recover from this stroke. So we're looking now. I did an intake on the phone with her to learn all about her dad, his care needs, his social needs, his emotional needs, where he would want to live, at least even if it's temporary or permanent, what his budget is. And then once we do an intake and learn about a family like that, then we're going to give her a curated list of places that would be able to care for him, short-term or long-term, whatever the needs are. And then we take our clients out on tours, on personal tours, so that we act a little bit like a real estate agent, and that we really know all these properties and can help our clients narrow down their choices to what's going to be the very best fit. So that's just kind of an overview of how we initially work with a family. Now, some families are calling us for care in the home, because that's where people start with when they're needing care. And we'll typically give them about three home care companies that can come into the home and provide care. So
great. Well, what are the costs of senior care, and does care in the home versus moving to an assisted living community differ in prices?
Yeah, I think that's a really important question, because people, I think everyone needs to know what it costs. It's expensive to have people come into your home. So first, let's talk about care in the home. We refer licensed, bonded, insured agencies. So these home care agencies, they vet all the caretakers, they train them, their FBI backgrounds and fingerprinted, and they're the employers. They pay the employment tax, the workers' compensation insurance, and make sure you have staff. Those companies now charge between $27 and $35 per hour to bring care into your home. Now, there are people who do this who don't work for a company, but according to the Supreme Court decision in 2018, those are not independent contractors. So if you bring someone, you may hear about a great caretaker from your neighbor down the street, some person they've had who's not with a company. So you legally have to be the employer. You need to pay employment tax and be sure and get workers' compensation insurance on that person coming into your home to take care of your loved one. And those people typically charge $18 to $25 per hour. So that's home care. So the only other way to get home care that's less than that is if someone's very low income and they're on Medi-Cal. Typically, they won't be getting more than $2,000 a month income coming in. Medi-Cal pays for in-home support services, which is very limited time. They send a caretaker and they help subsidize it, to send a caretaker into the house. That's Medi-Cal. Medicare is your healthcare program when you hit 65, where it pays for hospitalizations and doctor's visits. But Medicare doesn't pay for anything with assisted living or anything with care in the home. Medi-Cal has a very limited program to help. So that's an idea of home care. And then assisted living, we have different types of places. So you might have seen the big assisted living communities. I mean, has anybody been to a big one like Sunrise or Atria? If you raise your hand, they're a little bit like, we talk about them like a cruise ship on land. So you get your bedroom, studio or 1 or 2 bedroom with your private bathroom, and you go to a dining room for meals, and they have all this transportation and activities and staff on hand to help you with whatever you need. Those are the big assisted living communities. Those tend to run those in LA and Ventura County. If you're super independent, I have people move in. I had a guy last week move into a community. He got his apartment for $2,900. He didn't need any help. He got a studio. So I think the least expensive studio apartment might be $2,500 when you don't need any help. When you need help, they start adding in extra. And that can go, those prices can go, I mean, you can spend $12,000 a month at places. So that's when we work with the family. We aren't going to send people, if you tell me what your budget is, we're not going to send you to a place that's way out of budget or that wouldn't meet your needs at all. So that kind of gives you an idea of what happens with assisted living when people look at it is when they start needing a lot of home care, 24/7 home care, or even 8 or 12 hours a day, it becomes much more expensive than assisted living. So that's one reason the assisted living business is growing, because people need this help and they can't afford to pay for the extensive home care.
What about these community homes? Like in my neighborhood, there's a couple of houses. They have like 5 or 6 people. Where do they fall into the picture?
Okay, so we talked about the big assisted living, like a cruise ship on land, that maybe would have like 100 residents. Under the same umbrella with the Department of Social Services are small assisted livings. So these are called residential care homes. There's hundreds of them in LA County, hundreds and hundreds, and in Ventura County. You would not even know they exist. They're right in your neighborhood, but they don't have signs. They help. Their regulations are they can have a maximum of 6 seniors in a home with 2 caregivers and an owner. And this is all detailed on my website, assistedlivingconnections.com. These homes are licensed with the state, same licensing as the big places, and they're for a high level of care. So let's say a senior's in a wheelchair and needs help with bathing and dressing and eating and everything. They're really designed for a very high level of care. And often people will have dementia who live in these homes, that need a lot of guidance. Sometimes we'll move a younger person in, maybe they have cerebral palsy, where, they just need a lot of help. They're fine cognitively, but they need a lot of help. So those homes, the cost in the San Fernando Valley, a shared room, they have shared rooms and private rooms. So a shared room might run at the lowest, maybe $2,600 to $3,500. Private rooms tend to run $3,500 to $7,500 in the Valley. And they're more in Ventura County. I see from Matan, here was a question. Are there any programs or insurances that cover portions of assisted living or home health care? So Medicare doesn't cover anything. The only program that helps is Medi-Cal. Now, here's the caveat. With assisted living, for Medi-Cal to help you, you either have to be very high care needs, and then you'd have to live in a skilled nursing facility. And so we talk about assisted living big places, assisted living small homes. Then there's skilled nursing facilities. It's where people go after a hospital visit and they need rehab. Say they broke their hip, they have an infection. It's a medical facility. Medicare does pay for you to be there short-term for rehab. Medi-Cal, if someone needs long-term care and they qualify, they possibly can get a bed in a skilled nursing facility, and Medi-Cal will pay for that. But you got to understand, I tell families, if you're considering this, you need to go look at them. They're not like these nice assisted livings. It's 2 to 3 people to a room. Everybody's in wheelchairs. It's a depressing place to live. It's a hard enough place to go for rehab, but to live there, you really have to look at that. That is something Medi-Cal will pay for. Long-term.
Wouldn't their money have to be below a certain level for the Medi-Cal to kick in?
It does. It does. It's usually around 2,000 or less per month. There's another very small Medi-Cal program. If you only have 1,350 per month, they will help you pay for living in an assisted living community or a home. But that has a 3-year wait list. Okay, so I'm going to get more into what happens, because we help people short-term and long-term. So sometimes they're going to move to a great assisted living and have a wonderful quality of life there. And then at some point they may run out of money. So we help people figure out, what are we going to do long-term when we're down to our Social Security. Now we only have 2,200 or 1,500 a month.
I know that sometimes I have to clear out a room. I have to declutter a room in someone's house because they're bringing in a live-in, a caregiver. So I see that as an organizer. So Kelila, how do you determine whether a person needs to be in an assisted living facility, a memory care, or a residential board and care?
So when we do our initial interview, we usually can tell right away. Are they an independent senior who's walking and just maybe has a little bit of memory loss and needs help with their medications, and might be great for a large assisted living, whether they benefit from all the activities and the transportation and the live music and the exercise and all the programs there. So if someone is more declined and has a lot of memory loss and can't remember anything, sometimes we're looking at a memory care, which is part of a big assisted living. They have secured memory care areas, or a boarding care home. So sometimes we'll have to go meet the family and meet the senior. Often we can tell from the initial interview. And when I take people on tour, most of the time, like I'll take a family on tour, we'll just look at big assisted livings, or we'll just look at these small homes. Sometimes I'm taking a family to both big places and small, so we can determine what's a better fit for that senior. Because when people work with us, they won't have to, it's going to be the right fit the first time. We are a free service. Families don't pay anything to work with us. The communities, whether it's a big assisted living, a memory care, or a residential care home, pay us a fee after someone moves in and lives there a month. So it is win-win, because these communities call us and say, hey, we've got openings, bring us people. Because we aren't going to just take someone on tour. We're going to walk someone through the entire process, find the right place, go on tour. When you find the right place, help negotiate the best rate, and then connect them with other professionals like Janet to help with downsizing, decluttering, organizing, or resources to help them move or sell their house. We're walking through the whole process of moving.
Tammy had her hand up, but now it's come down. Tammy, do you want to add?
Hi there. Hi, everybody. I'll show here a little bit. So yeah, Kelila covered it pretty well. I just wanted to add in that, why you would want to use a placement service is because of the relationships and the knowledge that we have. It really saves a lot of time and a lot of stress and even money, because we are given promotions, just like Kelila said. They call us, they let us know what they have. They say we're offering a certain special. And it may be something that a client wouldn't get because they don't have the knowledge if they just went on their own. And I also think that having worked in this, three of us, because Jan, our San Fernando Valley rep, is here too, we have such a feeling after working with people for so long that generally we could offer people, there's thousands of places and we could offer them, say, 20. But out of those 20, there might be 1, 2, or 3, sort of like the horse races, that's going to be the winner. So that's how I think about it.
And we have a whole team. We have 6 people on our team to help. And everyone who calls us, we help. If someone has $900 a month, they're not going to be able to move into an assisted living. But we're going to talk to them about the programs. And I have pages on my website. What are the government programs? It's very limited, but what will help them? So we're here and we work 7 days a week.
Can you differentiate some questions that one would ask or you would ask at a small facility versus a large facility? What are some specific questions that is important to ask at the different sized facilities?
Well, in a large assisted living, I would certainly want to ask about what are the care costs, because someone may move in being very independent, but then what are the additional costs? Because if you need help with your medications or bathing or dressing, that's going to be extra. So you have to get that figured out so that you can look to see, can I afford this place? And I help people with that even before the tour. So we're not going to go to places that are unaffordable. Also, you want to ask about the employees and the staff. How long have they been there? And what is the staffing ratio? And what are the activities at the community? How many exercise classes? It really, we narrow it down to what are the interests. Like I have a lot of people with animals. They want to make sure they can bring their pets, and all the communities do welcome pets, but some, have nice porches or nice balconies, someplace where you can take your pet right outside your door to a grassy area. And a lot of them now come with dog parks at the communities. So those are for the big communities. For a small residential home, and again, I have this detailed on a flyer that Janet will make available, the questions to ask. But at a small home, you're going to want to know about the experience of the owner and the caregivers, and what is the care like day to day, and what's the daily schedule like. There's a lot to look at. I always ask, what are people interested in? Do they love to sit outside or garden? Are they really interested in cooking? So we can gear a place. Or often, like Tammy and we placed a couple who were both Chinese speakers in Ventura County. It was hard to find a place that had other Chinese speakers, especially in Ventura County. But we found a home because they were going to move to a residential home, had 2 openings, and one of the caregivers spoke Chinese. I did that the other week for a lady who speaks Lithuanian. I have very few homes do that, but often people revert to their original language. So those are the types of things we narrow down people's choices for.
That's very interesting. And she mentioned she has a handout. So if anyone would like the handout, you can email me, Janet at hopeorganizers.com, and we can make sure that we get that to you. What legal and medical documents need to be organized to go into an assisted living?
So the state of California requires that you have a doctor fill out what's called a 602 form. It's an 18-page physician's report that talks about the senior and all their care needs, their diagnosis, their medications. And the state also requires a clear TB test or chest x-ray and a clear COVID test. And most communities, everyone is vaccinated, double vaccinated, especially their employees. Most of them require the employees to be vaccinated, and all the seniors have been pretty compliant with getting vaccinated, because now it's strict. Go into a community, they're going to take your temperature, they're going to ask you a questionnaire, and they're going to require you be masked to visit anyone or to tour a community. So but the paperwork are those 3 things: a physician's report, a COVID test, and a TB test, which we help our clients get together and work with the doctors. The other things that are really important to have on hand, and I know that you've done seminars on this, Janet, is to have an advance directive and a power of attorney for health and financial, and a physician's order for life-sustaining treatment, and your estate plan in order. So all of those things, all of us need to do. You know, don't put off getting your estate plan in order, because you don't want to pay probate costs.
And if anyone missed that, it is on my website. You can listen to a recording of the estate planning attorney that spoke back in February. And I also had someone speak about digital assets after death. What happens to your Facebook account and your email password and your online banking? And there's a recording on that as well. So once the facility is chosen, how does your company organize the transition or the move of the senior to that place?
So we work with them. They have to get that paperwork together, and then the facility will sit down with them and just fill out paperwork to move in. It's an assessment form and an admissions form. All these assisted living communities are month-to-month rent. Just give 30 days notice and you can move out. So you're not tied into anything long-term. So we help them set that up, and then we're going to connect them with someone like Janet if they need to, say they need to sell a house or declutter a house so that it can be ready to be put on the market. We're going to connect them with movers, and I know Janet has a lot of movers, and realtors who can help them if they need that. And also, we have lists of the things that you need to bring to move to an assisted living, and almost all assisted livings give you that as well. But we talk to families about these big assisted livings are not furnished. You have to bring your own furniture. The small assisted livings are furnished. You can use their furniture or your own or any combination. So we help families with figuring out what do we bring, and then really important, how do we talk to our senior? If you're moving a parent to assisted living, you know, I moved my mom to assisted living. She wanted to move to an assisted living. She said, I don't want to be home with a caretaker. She was very social. She lived at Leisure Village in Camarillo, and she ran all the committees there. So she said, no, I want someplace I want to go to dining room and have friends to talk to every day and go on the outings. So most seniors aren't like that, but so sometimes we have to have a talk, you know, with the senior about why are they having to move to an assisted living. Sometimes they're needing such high care and they have memory loss. They're not making the best judgments. So we actually have a social worker and a licensed therapist on our team, and we help families with talking to seniors about making a move. And then
Go ahead.
so once, you know, I think that's pretty complete on the organizing and the transition.
Okay. Then once the senior is situated in the facility, what should the follow-up of a company like yours look like that we should all be aware of?
So any placement agency you work with, you want to make sure they're local. That's really important. By the way, I didn't tell you, there's people who do what we do online. Okay, A Place for Mom, caring.com are two of those companies. They do not have people who live in your area. They are just have zip code lists and price lists, and they will bombard you with people calling you, because what they do is they send your information out and then they let all the communities contact you. You might have 10 communities or 20 communities calling you. Tammy and I don't do that. We don't allow our communities to call our clients, because we're going to narrow your list way down and then personally walk you through. So that's a reason to always use a local company, preferably a licensed company. We're advocates for seniors and families. So the follow-up is after someone's moved in, we're going to check back in 2 to 3 weeks and make sure they're happy. And then we have a monthly constant contact newsletter that goes out, and we run seminars also, you know, because sometimes people will call us later with other questions. You know, they'll say, you know, I have questions about estate planning or questions about something that's going on at the facility, we are always, they're always welcome to call us so that we can help advocate. And one thing people call us for is if there's a price increase at the facility. I know that was one of your questions, Janet. I regularly help people figure out what do I do about price increases. All of the large assisted livings have annual increases that run between 3 and 6%. So that's something they have to reveal to you before you move in. Over the past 3 years, what's been their annual percentage increase? Because they've got to increase because, minimum wage is going up all the time, and they've got to keep the properties up. So there's always going to be that increase. That's an important thing to ask. But there is a way we can help our clients if there's a big jump or if they can't afford it anymore. Sometimes we suggest moving to a smaller unit in the same place. That's always a good solution. Someone might have a 1-bedroom and now they could be in a studio and save $2,000 a month.
What about, I had a client with this situation where her husband was in a facility and he was there for many months, and then he got sick and was taken to a hospital. And then from the hospital, he was put in like a convalescent or skilled nursing until he recovered. So he was out of his room at the facility for a month, a little over a month.
Right.
So what typically happens he had long-term care. So every month when she'd get the bill from the facility, she'd send it to the long-term care company, or they would bill directly to the long-term care company, who would then pay the rent. Well, during that month that he was not in the room and all his possessions were there, what typically happens is, do they give like an allowance, like you can skip a month in rent, or?
No, it's like renting an apartment. Really, it's a month-to-month rent. You gotta, even if you're out of the community at the hospital, you still have to pay your rent. Now, you shouldn't have to pay any care costs. Let's say he's been having the community provide bathing and dressing and medication management.
Right.
You shouldn't have to pay that. So that's something to ask when you move in. But you will have to pay your rent on the apartment because they're holding it, unless, as long as your possessions are there and you haven't released it, you're going to be paying rent.
What happens?
That I brought up for me the ways to pay for assisted living. So number 1 would be private pay. Number 2 would be with your Social Security and your resources. Number 2 would be long-term care insurance. And a lot of people don't have that. There's really good hybrid policies you can get now that are life insurance. Have you had long-term care insurance program, Janet? Have you had a specialist talk about that?
Not yet.
Okay, because that's a good way to pay for assisted living. We are all living longer. The average age of the clients I work with now is 85. And I meet 100-year-olds every week. So you, at some point, all of you nice young people here, you're gonna be 95 and you might need help, and it will wipe you out, because the nicer assisted livings right now, you need to have at least $5,000 a month to be in them. That's now. So anyway, the ways to pay: private pay, long-term care insurance, veterans benefits. We help people get veterans benefits if they served during wartime. There is a nice veterans benefit package. And there are a few places where they will cover your cost for living in a long-term care. One is Motion Picture and Television Fund. That's in Calabasas. If you're in the motion picture industry for a certain length of time, you're eligible to move into that location. Another is Jewish Home for the Aging. You don't have to be Jewish. They will just take your Social Security and you can live there the rest of your life. They have a long wait list. You have to go through quite a long application process, but that's a good place to live. And if you're going to be running out of your money, that's an important place to apply to.
Now, don't both of those have their own? I know the Jewish Home here in Reseda, they do their own fundraising so that they do raise money to help the people that can't pay the full price.
They do that. And the motion picture industry is funded by the industry. There's also a Masonics, anyone who is a Mason they have long-term care, really nice assisted living communities, and a fund for people to live in boarding care homes. There's also a home in Silmar for people of Armenian descent. So there, we know these, we know these, we're always trying to figure out with our clients, what's the short-term plan? What are we going to do for the next like 3 to 5 years? What's the long-term plan when our money runs down? What are we going to do? So we're there to help families with that as well.
I'm sure many of your clients are last minute. For example, a senior falls, is injured, can't return to his home. Is there anything that a senior or the family members of that senior can do to prepare for a future need of placement? Like, should the family start looking just to be aware, or at least getting, I'm glad the people that are on the call today get to meet you and Tammy, because this is a form of organizing and preparing for that future. Do you have any other, do you do any kind of like tours for adult children or seminars for adult children to make them aware of this kind of what's out there, this kind of a process in preparation for their elderly?
Well, we do seminars like this. We have seminars online. Most people want to stay in their home. So I like to educate people what the costs are so they can be prepared for that. Mm-hmm. If your mom, you think maybe in a couple of years she might be ready for assisted living, I'd say, call us at a year or 9 to 6 months in advance, because things change really rapidly. She might be super independent and driving and doing great, and she's 87 and you think she's going to be like that forever. And then things can change so quickly overnight. So all the work you did looking at these big places now may not even apply to her. So, ideally, a family calls us a few months in advance, but we do get a lot of people straight from the hospital or skilled nursing facility, and we have to find a place for them in 2 to 5 days. And we can do that. We can find something within hours. We have a really fast system. We text all of our owners and find out what the openings are. So we can do things right away, but ideally we have more lead time. But I don't think you need to look, the only time you really need to look way in advance is if you want to be in a continuing care retirement community. So this is another area that's a kind of a niche area where you move in, you have to have no care needs to move in. You buy into the community. And so they can be very expensive. We have one in Ventura County. We have Jewish Home for the Aging has one in Reseda. There's some in Pasadena and LA. You buy into the community. You start as independent, but then they have assisted living, they have memory care, and they have skilled nursing all in the community. So that's someplace you have to plan for, because typically they're expensive and you've got to go in without care needs. So that's a continuing care retirement community. The one we have in Ventura County here is, you buy in plus you pay monthly. It's very, very costly to live there. So, again, Tammy, do you have any other input on what people can do to prepare in advance?
I was just thinking, I hate looking at myself on screen here, but so I was just thinking that I have a friend that was in the CCRC recently who did fall and injure herself and wound up in a wheelchair and needed care. And the care really wasn't even available for her. I don't know if I should say that, but it's just what happened. So, even if a person tries to plan in that way, I'm not sure it will necessarily work out. And we're talking a lot about the cost and so forth, and Kalila's very organized, and that's why I prefer that she do these presentations. I'm a little more from the gut and feeling, and I feel that it's very important to mention, we're talking about 2 types of assisted living: large assisted living, memory care, and boarding care, and that some are all inclusive of the price and some have add-ons. But there's so many new models coming out all the time that it's also nice to work with somebody who's knowledgeable, because there are hybrids as well. And I think that for a person to move to a new home, which is a huge change, and then be able to adapt well, it's important to find that really just right fit.
That's really important, Tammy. I mean, most of these residential care homes, which are also called board and care, is one price. So that's one way people can contain their costs. It's just one price. It doesn't keep going up as you need more help. And we do have these new models. We do have some beautiful assisted living, board and care kind of models that are kind of together, where it's just one price.
So, and the other important thing to mention is that there are so many beautiful locations popping up. You know, when we use that term assisted living, it has a little bit of a negative connotation. And so they're starting to refer to it more now as senior resort living. Because
yeah, because these new ones, you walk in, you're going to go, oh my gosh, I'm at the Four Seasons. They are really nice. I mean, they're marketing to the baby boomers, and I bring kids on tour all the time for their parents. The kids are saying, I'm moving in. Someone does all my cooking and cleaning for me. That'd be great.
I know that when I've gone into some of these places to open the mail for clients and pay the bills and, you know, file their papers and keep everything in order, I'm like, yeah, some of the places are beautiful apartments, beautiful eating areas. Sometimes I've seen that if someone is in a hospital and then they go to like the convalescent or the skilled nursing, that they can't even be let to go back home unless the home is in an organized fashion so that they can get a wheelchair or a walker through. And so I deal with this quite a bit in helping people clear their walkways and everything so that they can bring people back. I know of several cases where there was a lot of clutter and people have had to stay in the skilled nursing or the convalescent home for extended periods of time because there was the social workers or the county would go out there and they say, so sorry, we can't return the person to their home. Do you see this sometimes?
Yeah, where it's not safe, because they are in a hospital too. They have to make a safe discharge. So if it's not a safe discharge, you know, if we can't, we can bring in organizing companies and decluttering companies or companies that do, will put in railings and make the house accessible for a person, for example, in a wheelchair. So.
Yeah, this all, you know, as I said in the very beginning, all of this involves organizing. I have one more question. If a loved one is showing memory loss, what are the first steps a family needs to take to care for the senior? Many times these people, you know, I see it quite often with some of my clients that are in their 80s and 90s is they don't realize that their memory is going, and sometimes they'll repeat things or ask the same question, or they argue because they don't want to leave their home, which is familiar to them. They don't want to go to a strange place. How does a family prepare that in that situation?
I mean, hopefully there is family involved. First, you want to go get that senior to a doctor, because it could just be they have a urinary tract infection, which really affects cognition. And it can actually make people feel kind of crazy having an infection like that. It could be low sodium. That'll also do that. The medication might be off. So we need to get a doctor to check them out. But you may also want to have a neurological evaluation, you know, because when you have a neurologist come and do a full evaluation, it's good to know what's the baseline. You know, does this person is this just the beginning of memory loss, or do they have Alzheimer's, or do they have something else? I mean, there's all these different types of dementia. Alzheimer's is the biggest kind, but there's all different types. So you want to identify what is it, because there may be medications to help, or there may be behavior modification to help. And it certainly may point out that this isn't something, if it's not going to go away, if it's not just a problem with like a urinary tract infection, if this person needs help now, we don't want to leave them alone in their house. It's just not safe.
Correct.
Do we have questions maybe?
I'm gonna open it up to questions in just a moment.
Okay.
This was very informative, just great. And I'm going to be opening it up to questions, but I did want to let people know that we have in September and October, we have two very exciting speakers coming. You probably saw that on the flyer. In September, I have a person talking about nutrition and how to organize for healthy eating. And she's a great speaker, very, very knowledgeable. And in October, for people that may have websites, I have an attorney coming on who's a specialist in making sure that your website is ADA compliant. There's many scammers that are suing right now. I don't want scammers, but people that are looking for trouble basically, and they want to sue, and they're looking for websites that are not ADA compliant. And so there's a lot of litigation going on right now, and they're just trying to be spiteful and put the small business owner out of business. So that's going to be a really exciting talk as well. So look forward for those flyers. All right. If you have a question, why don't you unmute yourself? We have, see if there's anything in chat, or if you'd like to come off of mute and ask a question, please unmute yourself.
I know it's a lot of information at once.
Yeah, well, I think you might have answered everything that people were thinking, because I don't see any questions.
I'm wondering if anybody has a loved one right now that they're thinking about might need some kind of help.
I have a question.
Mhm.
Can I ask one?
Hi, Gail.
Hi. What do you know about Parkinson's? People who have Parkinson's and then need care, assisted living or whatever.
These communities are all very experienced with Parkinson's patients. We work with Parkinson's patients all the time because it's really a progressive disease, and they will help them, and also help them, hopefully get connected to really good doctor with good medication. But at the communities, they're there to help them as that disease progresses and they need more and more assistance. Yeah. It's really tough to be living with someone and watch someone go through that disease.
Did you see people during the beginning of COVID, when there was all these lockdowns? I know families that took, and I know someone who left an assisted living, and his caregiver and his fiduciary brought him back to his house, which he had been renting out, because he couldn't stand the being isolated. And did you see a lot of people, their families taking them out of these?
I didn't see very many families. I mean, it was really tough on everybody, whether their people were home alone and isolated or in a community and isolated. Hopefully we're never going to have to go back to where there was those severe lockdowns now that we have the vaccine. But it was really hard for everyone undergoing that. And we saw a lot of seniors decline cognitively because they didn't have the socialization. That's a super important thing for cognitive. You need to think about having socialization, good nutrition, and certainly enough hydration, and check your hearing. If you have anyone with hearing loss in your family and they're not wearing hearing aids, the brain starts to gray out, and it will increase dementia if they don't wear hearing aids.
Another thing that I noticed is that the assisted living communities seem to really up their level of care and activities as a result of going through COVID. A lot of them became much more competitive and are actually doing, I think, a better job than they were pre-COVID.
That's good to know. Yeah, I know about 4 or 5 families that pulled their family members out. And maybe they'll put them back at some point. But any other questions? Well, I want to thank Tammy and Kelila very much for being here tonight. This was great. And I look forward to seeing you all on next month's call.
Thank you so much, Janet. It was such a pleasure to
You're
be
welcome.
here and get to talk to all of you. And I hope it's been helpful.
Great. And this recording will be on the next month's, will be posted a link on the next month's flyer, as well as being evergreen on my website and YouTube. So thank you for being here tonight, everyone.